Tonight, it is all about the law. We'll start with federal prosecutor Preet Bharara's latest high-profile case. It was just announced earlier today.
It frustrates people, but that's the way the law is, and that's the way.
Then the Comey effect. Our panel of attorneys looking at why the FBI director revisited the email case against Hillary Clinton and whether or not, now that we see the details, it was warranted. Also, our conversation with former New York Times executive editor Bill Keller and why he says criminal justice reform could actually accelerate next year. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us. And we begin with claims of corruption and bribery in the New York State Pension Fund. Now, it is filled with lurid claims of sex, drugs, and millions of dollars changing hands. We'll get the details from our senior political correspondent now, Andrew Whitman. Andrew?
And Rich, this indictment involves one of the New York State Pension Fund's portfolio managers who's accused of steering fund business to brokers who bribed him, showering him with sex, drugs, cash, and gifts. A federal grand jury indicting this man, Navnoor Kang, a former managing director at the pension fund, who was responsible for investing some $53 billion of pension fund money. The accusation is that he received more than $100,000 in cash, plus drugs, prostitutes, luxury gifts, travel, entertainment, lavish meals, and even bottle service at nightclubs, all in exchange for steering $2 billion of fund business to two brokers. U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara saying those brokers, who are also charged in the scheme, then collected commissions on the deals, valued in the millions of dollars.
This is a fund that is entrusted with over $180 billion of pension money belonging to over 1 million New York State retirees and beneficiaries.
One of the brokers, Greg Schoenhorn of Short Hills, New Jersey, pleaded guilty last week.
A vice president at another broker-dealer who was admitted to various federal crimes and who is now cooperating with the government.
The fund is the pension system for most state workers in New York. With $184 billion in assets, it is the third largest pension fund in the entire United States. The fund has only one trustee responsible for its oversight, State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli. DiNapoli is not accused in the scheme and did not appear to have any role in it, but his oversight of the fund will almost certainly be questioned in the weeks to come. We do not know of any additional gains or losses to the pension fund or pensioners as a result of the alleged bribery scheme. If convicted on all counts, Kang and the other defendant could face 105 years in prison, at least $6.25 million in fines as well. In addition, civil suits have also been filed against the defendants by the SEC and the State Comptroller's Office. Rich?
It is just beginning, Andrew. Thank you. Let's bring in our panel right now. Mayo Bartlett's an attorney at the law offices of Mayo Bartlett PLLC and a former chief of the Bias Crimes Unit at the Westchester County DA's office. Doug Von Oist, founding partner of Carson Von Oist, focusing on corporate misconduct and selected by the Legal 500 as one of the most influential trial lawyers in the country, and himself a former ADA out on Long Island. Dominic Carter joins us, political journalist and author, and Andrew Whitman, who you just met, our senior political correspondent. And Andrew, I start with you in that you mentioned the comptroller, and there is no allegations that he was involved in the scheme whatsoever. But as we followed the P here with most of the investigations by Bharara, it never ends where it starts.
It doesn't seem likely that there is any criminal complaint that's going to be lobbed against the comptroller. This will be a political problem for him instead, because one of his responsibilities is oversight of the pension and the pension managers and things like that. So at some point, if the buck is going to stop somewhere, it does stop with Tom DiNapoli.
Dom, we've seen this is not without precedent. Certainly this isn't just a New York problem. Mismanagement of pension funds has happened before. Alan Hevesy, his name jumps to mind here. But, you know, for the folks who don't know, you've got state workers here. They've got to invest this. You got a whole bunch of people who come to them and say, have I got a deal for you? Invest with me here. You'll get terrific returns and everything else. While the details are lurid and shocking, maybe people shouldn't be as shocked here about the possibility of corruption. We're talking about this big a fund.
I can almost guarantee you, Richard, this is not going to touch DiNapoli. He would have to be the biggest fool in New York to be involved with this. Let's keep in mind how he came to power. Exactly what you just said. The legislature appointed him, and top state leaders did not want DiNapoli. He got the job because the last state comptroller, for the same exact thing, and also for having law enforcement drive his wife, Alan Hevesy, went to jail for this. So this has happened before. One of the names, the biggest names in
By the way,
political.
Attorney General Cuomo at the time.
Right, that's right,
was
that's
the AG
But,
when this
but I
went.
want to throw
Yeah.
the name of not Hevesy. His name escapes me right now. But his top political consultant. He was one of the biggest consultants in the game. Let's not forget he went to jail with Hevesy for this. So this is nothing new. These clowns do this all the time. You would think by now they would have learned because this prosecutor is not joking. And again, I say to you, Richard, why is it the feds have to step in? Where's the state attorney general? Where are all of the local officials?
That was going to be my next political point in all this. You'll notice this is yet another case. This one is not Albany corruption. This is just with the pension system. But where is the Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman? Why
Nick
isn't
Morris
he?
is the consultant I'm thinking
Why
about.
isn't Eric Schneiderman involved in this prosecution? Why does it fall on Preet Bharara? It seems as though the New York powers that be are not doing that great or effective a job at policing New York or
Can
policing
you
Albany.
imagine when Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo that is, and Elliot Spitzer before client number 9, but when there were AGs, do you imagine them getting big-footed by the U.S. attorney at the time? No. It would have been inconceivable. Now, by far, it's Bharara who's the sheriff. All right, now I go to you guys in terms of we don't know, as Andrew said in his setup, about the losses or gains with this fund. But if it does turn out, I mean, we're talking the fire department, the police department, basically every state worker has got skin in the game as it relates with this pension fund, and we're talking in excess of $100 billion evaluation of it. If it got shorted or compromised in any way, is there recourse?
Well, you know, I'm not sure how much recourse there's going to be. You probably are. The issue is the same even if they're doing very well. Let's put it this way. Let's assume that they're making 8% and everybody else is making 3%. It's not an issue as much in terms of how well the fund is doing as public integrity. So you have people who run for these offices, who get these positions in local government, state government. They're paid a reasonably modest salary compared to what they'd get in the private sector. But you have to wonder why they're there. If you're really there to get kickbacks and you're there to be able to squeeze people, that's the bigger issue. And ultimately, one of the concerns is that, yes, you may end up compromising the funds.
You know, conversely, though, if everybody else is getting 5% for returns and you're getting 2.5 or 3, I know a whole bunch of folks are going to say, time out here. You know, we had an expectation and a rightful one that our money was going to be invested without conflict of interest or conflict of attention. But Doug, for me, I can't believe it got to this point, and we don't know all the dates yet where allegedly all these actions took place, but how with a fund valued at more than $170 billion, could this have gotten to the point where it took a full investigation to find out these guys were getting paid under the table, coke hookers and the whole bit? You would think the scrutiny would have been a lot tighter on this.
Well, Rich, it's still, at this point, we don't know the strength of the prosecution yet, because I would question immediately the ability of this person to actually steer this amount of money to these people. So at this point, you have the theory of the case is that he was able to take this through the things they gave him and steer the entirety of the funds to these guys. I don't know if that's true. Was he being wined and dined by them, and just coincidentally he was saying to them, hey, by the way, I'm getting you all this business, but maybe that wasn't true. So we have to take a step back.
There can't be a single line of signature for this large a fund. It had to go through tons of approvals.
The state controller controls. That's how Hevesy went to jail.
DiNapoli would have had to have approved at the end of the day the fund where the monies would have gone. There had to be a board here that people are going to look at with some fiscal oversight to say it's a good or bad investment.
But we're assuming that this is not an above board investment. So you may have somebody who certainly is in the middle in terms of their abilities as a financial advisor. So if the investments are being made properly and you're not siphoning off the funds, again, the issue comes down to public integrity. And if you really look at it, what's the cost of some prostitutes and cocaine? I mean, that's a drop in the bucket compared to
millions of dollars in
But one of the brokers involved in the case pleaded guilty last week and is cooperating with the feds. I mean, to me, that would indicate that they've got a little bit more than just.
They've got an airtight case.
That means they have a lot on that person who
Absolutely.
pled guilty, and now he's in a position where he has to provide information to get a better deal for him. So you don't know at this point. He may be in trouble, But this guy who's blamed, you don't know
Richard,
yet.
I just want to be clear here. The way it's been done in the past, the investments are all above ground. They're all legal investments. The issue, the criminality issue is, okay, I'm steering the fund, I'm investing the money, but I'm giving the guy that works for the state money so that he turns it over to me for me to legally invest,
Sure.
and I make money off of the investment. You know all of this stuff like the back of your hand.
Well, and to me, I wonder how prevalent this is. It took, if this is going on in New York, what do we think is happening, you know, in the Mississippis or the Montanas of the world here? I mean, especially with the funds of this size and this scope. But to me, if Bahara's got a playbook, we've talked about this with we've talked about this with a whole host of investigations that have gone down. If he has a playbook, it is he starts low and he aims high. He doesn't go for horizontal prosecutions. He tries to do for vertical ones to get bigger fish.
That's true, but to Doug's point again, if you are a cooperating witness, you have an inherent conflict. You automatically are an interested witness. You are there to benefit yourself. You didn't come out, this witness didn't come out voluntarily and say something's going on.
If they allege, okay, the details with the drugs, the hookers, and the cash and all that, I would assume, wiretaps or something else are involved. When you hear that, what is without knowing how would they have got that kind of information or intelligence? And he's already pled.
Well, that information could have come simply from exercising what's called a queen for a day, where you have a proffer, where you go in and you get immunity for the statements you make to law enforcement, and that's strictly coming from you. So it's not necessarily verifiable information. Quite often, it's not from a wiretap. And if you look at Bridgegate and you look at Christie, everybody kept saying, "Well, gee, why are they saying Christie's involved, but yet he's never been charged?" And to this date, it doesn't look like he ever will be.
Interesting. So next steps on this, guys, in terms of
These guys are
Bahara
experts.
dropped the bomb, but now we'll see where the
They're the experts, but in my opinion, the Fed's got an airtight case with this snitch or whatever you want to call him, and all of these guys are going down. There's precedent for the state controller of the state of New York went to prison for exactly this, and his key political advisor.
And from a political standpoint, let's see how close DiNapoli and Schneiderman are to Cuomo in the coming weeks and months, or if he's going to sort of try to kick them free and run without them.
And it's an open secret. Politically, Cuomo did not want DiNapoli to be the controller. He did not actively move to get Eric Schneiderman basically working on the same ticket as Attorney General here. So they've always been divided interests often.
And can he push the state Democratic Party to try to push them out?
DiNapoli, former assemblyman, very close with a lot of people in Albany. He's very well liked among the assembly. Always been an honest broker here, and again, not a single allegation against him whatsoever, but it was on his watch. So wherever that goes, we shall see. Andrew, Dominic, thank you guys very much. All right, rest of the table is going to remain with me, and when we come back, we're going to take a look at a whole bunch of legal cases, and we'll start with the Fed's case against Hillary Clinton and whether or not James Comey should have revisited just 11 days before the election. Plus, like a bad rash that never goes away, Bridgegate is back. Why the defense attorneys want new trials for Bridget Kelly and Bill Baroni, former Christie loyalists who were found guilty.